business cycle from 2000 until 2020. First of all, what is GDP? GDP is the total sum of spending in a country by an investor, governments, and total of net export. High GDP growth level is associated with a low rate unemployment. This is because a growing economy demands a growing labor force. Besides that, there are also inflationary pressure, but both fiscal and monetary policy responsible to keep the inflation rate low. Look at this. This is Malaysia GDP annual growth rate, which is GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. As you can see in the line chart as shown, the lowest percentage of GDP was on year 2020, which is decreased to negative 17.1%. At this rate, Malaysia economy shrink the most since 1988 in the second quarter of 2020. This is reflecting the negative impact of measures taken both globally and domestically in order to contain the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. After that, this is Malaysia GDP highest annual growth rate, which was on March 2010 at 10.3%. Between 2000 until 2020, in the recent years, Malaysia has successfully transformed from an exporter of raw materials into a diversified economy. The main reason Malaysia gross domestic product is decreasing to negative 17.1% was due to the 47 days of movement control order that have forced most businesses to shut down. For your information, in year 2019, Malaysia gross domestic product has expanded by 4.3% and grew 3.6% in the last quarter. In 2015, gross domestic product annual growth rate was 4.2%. After that, it started increasing to 5.9% in 2016. However, in 2017, the rate started decreasing to 4.7%. Next, in March quarter of 2016, the Malaysian economy expanded by 4.2%, moderating from a 4.5% growth in the previous period. It is the weakest growth since the first quarter of 2013. In 2015, the Malaysian economy advanced 5.6% in the first quarter, moderating from a revised 5.7% expansion in the previous period. The last one is, the largest sector of economy in our country is services, followed by manufacturing and export. That's all from me. Thank you.
So next, I'm gonna explain the phases business cycle. First, real economic growth rate is the rate at which a nation's gross domestic product (GDP) changes growth from one year to another. GDP is the market value of all the goods and services produced in a country in a particular time period. So next, during 2004, Malaysia GDP growth rate is 6.8% per annum. Malaysia GDP growth rate phase in 2004 is recovery phase. The turning point from depression to expansion is termed as recovery phase. During the period of revival or recovery, there are expansions and rise in economic activities. When demand starts rising, production increases, and this causes an increase in an investment. So, third one, during 2008, Malaysia GDP growth rate is 4.8% per annum. Malaysia GDP growth rate is same as 2004, which is recovery phase. In addition, during recovery phases, the banks expand credit, business expansions take place, and stock markets are activated. and prices and profits start rising and business expands. Number 4, during 2012, Malaysia GDP growth rate is 5.5% per annum. Malaysia GDP growth rate faced during 2012 is recession. The turning point from prosperity to depression is termed as recession phase. During a recession period, the economic activities starting to slow down. When the demand starts falling, the overproduction and the future investment plans were also given up. The increase in unemployment causes a sharp decline in income and aggregate demand. Number 5, during 2016, Malaysia GDP growth rate is 4.5% per annum. Malaysia GDP growth rate faced during 2016 is phase recession, which is same as 2012. The recession is the stage that follows the peak phase. The demand for goods and services starts declining rapidly and steadily in this phase. Producers do not notice the decrease in demand instantly and go on producing, which creates a situation of excess supply in demand. Prices tend to fall. Last but not least, during 2020, Malaysia GDP growth rate is negative 3.4% per annum. As we all know, Malaysia GDP growth rate in 2020, the phase is called trough. In this phase, it is referred to a depression, contraction, or downswing of the economy. The trough is the bottom of the recession period. During this time, the economic slowdown continues in a downward spiral over an extended period of time. There is continuous decrease of output, income, employment, prices, and profits. Most of these phases caused by pandemic COVID-19 that hit our country in early March 2020.
Hi, I will analyze the causes of phase state in business cycle. I will start on 2004 and 2008. On 2004 and 2008, GDP shows recovery phase. This happened because an sliding house price that have a negative impact on wealth and lower consumer spending. Second, credit crunch leading to a surge in interest costs and lack of funds. Third, volatile capital price and money markets undermine corporate and investment trusts. Fourth, higher interest rates leading to reduced consumption and expenditure. And finally, is a strong monetary management, higher taxation and reduced expenditure. Next, on 2012 and 2016, economy facing recession phase. This is because fall in aggregate demand. A demand side shock could occur due to several factors such as a financial crisis. If banks have a shortage of liquidity, they reduce lending and this reduce investment. Second, a rise in interest rate increases the cost of borrowing and reduce demand. Third, fall in asset price. Negative wealth effect leads to less spending. Fourth, fall in real wages, such as inflation outstripping nominal wage increases. Next, appreciation in exchange rate, export less competitive. Next, trade war, global economic downturn. And finally, supply side shock, such as rise in oil price costs, inflation and lower spending power. Next, I will explain about on 2020. On 2020, economy facing trough phase because MCO due pandemic COVID-19. At this time, our economy does not move because of that. This is unexpected event that is very hard to predict. For example, COVID-19 flu pandemic which disrupts travel, supply chain and normal business activity. A pandemic affects both supply and demand. During this time, everything fall in volume of output and trade, fall in income and rise in unemployment, decline in consumption and demand, fall in interest rate. And Malaysia also facing deflation, contraction of bank credit, overall business pessimism, and fall in marginal efficiency of capital, MEFC, and investment.
Hello and hi, my name is Aina Najwa binti Abdul Rahman. Today, I would like to present about comment on government action how to revive the economy due to COVID-19. As we know, today's world has problems that are quite difficult for every individual to face it. The problem is a coronavirus pandemic. I have 3 main points related to comments on government action to revive the economy due to COVID-19. My first point is, so from here we can see the government giving flexibility to small traders to continue their jobs, but on the condition that they must follow the SOP set by the government. Besides, we can also see that there are a handful of people who work from home during this period of PKP, but it does not affect the country's economy because their jobs are still running as usual. My second point is, from this point, through social media, we can get various accurate information on the latest news about COVID-19. So, it does not give concern to the people about the spread of the pandemic. At that time, all the people were satisfied with the information given because it not only involved their total number of cases per day only, but they also provide exposure about the national economy at the current time. Therefore, the people can find out about the economic development whether it is increasing or decreasing. My last point is, we can see this situation when the government gives a lot of flexibility to the people, even in the case of Movement Control Order or PKP. An example, some travel agencies have been opened, so it can help improve the country's economy to some extent because many people are actively traveling, especially with the current situation. In addition, as my own opinion, this is reasonable for our country because it can improve the country's economy even if the country's situation is not as stable as before. So, that's all from our group. Thank you.